Good day, good day. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jay, and this is Homeschool Your Kids podcast. Today we have with us Charise. Charise, introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Jay. My name is Charise Liggins Walker, and I am the founder of Sassy, Chic, Geek. It is a platform that celebrates and advances women and girls who dare to be sassy, live chic, and think geek. And I have a whole spiel about what all that means.
Yes, so spill it, because sassy. Okay, let's talk
Yes.
about it.
Well, so definitely growing up, I was a little bit sassy. My mom used to be like, "Oh, your mouth, man, I just can't." And, I feel like over the years, I've definitely been labeled as the sassy one or the one that has the attitude or whatever the case may be. But when I decided to create Sassy She Geek and I was really thinking about why people thought that I was sassy or whatever, or why did I present that way. And a lot of the times it was really because I just wanted to be heard. And
Oh, I said because you
sometimes
had an opinion.
I wanted to be heard. I had an opinion, and sometimes you just have to say it how you feel, right? But when I really thought about what I wanted to do as far as a platform, I really wanted to flip the script and kind of reclaim what sassy, chic, and geek meant. And so sassy is really about having a voice to be heard, and
Mm.
chic, although it's a term that people tend to associate with the fashion industry or fashion in general, I really felt like chic is really about expressing our own style and showing up as we are, and who we are. And I think that that's what chic, it's not so much about, wearing the latest trends and things like that. And then geek, because I'm a big geek, is really about celebrating that, using our brain power as our ultimate power. And so, yeah.
Yes, no, I love all of that because who got the Geek Squad? Best Buy got the Geek Squad.
Hmm.
Yes, no, Geek is chic. Look, Geek is chic.
Exactly,
Wanting to
exactly.
know and learn and grow is very chic. But I love how you have flipped that around. What brought this about? What did you just like? We need this. Like, look, the world needs this. Let me create
Oh
it.
my gosh. So what it is today and what it started out as is definitely two different things. And so I am a little bit of a nomad. I've lived in a few different places, trying to figure this whole life thing out. And one of the last places that I lived was Charlotte, North Carolina. And I lived there for about a year. And I always wanted to live there. I'm like, this is a place for me to be. It's an up and coming city. There's a lot of activity. It's still got that metropolitan feel, but it's kind of suburban. And when I moved there, it did not quite work out the way that I thought it would. And so I ended up moving back. I'm from originally from New York State. And so I moved back to New York State and I was like, oh, well, I'm going to create a blog and talk about my experiences in Charlotte and just sort of my random musings. But I ended up getting a job, pretty quickly after moving and having conversations with, different friends and peers and, at work. I realized that we were kind of all in the same boat. We were all these very quirky, unique individuals that really wanted to celebrate being ourselves, but also showing up to the world and doing all of these different things. And so I decided to sort of make Sassy Chic Geek less of a blog of my personal musings and more of a platform that really does focus on celebrating us showing up first for ourselves as full human beings and then going out to the world and doing dope and amazing things.
Oh, I love that.
Hmm.
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay. So you're back in New York.
Hmm.
Big difference from Charlotte.
Hmm.
So he was like, nah. Where's some other places you traveled?
Oh, well, other places that I've traveled. Last week I was in the Dominican Republic. on a little mini vacation. But I lived in a few different places, like I said, up and down the East Coast. So I lived in Pennsylvania. I currently live in Maryland, in the DMV region. I lived in North Carolina and South Carolina. So, and New Jersey, I don't really like to talk about that because, it's New Jersey, but I lived there as well.
Y'all are so funny. That New York to New Jersey thing is hilarious. But no, I love that. I love that you're traveling. It's building more of what you want to display as far as your blog goes. So what information are you presenting to families?
Yeah, so wow, that also has evolved quite a bit too. When I first started out, I really wanted it to be a platform for women, but I wanted to have, fun and exciting, content, and I wanted to look cute and to, just be really interactive. And so I have an uncle that's a graphic designer, and I was like, oh, can you, maybe create some like characters for me to use and in the content. And he's an artist and a graphic designer. He's like, I don't have time for your little like pet project. So I kind of learned how to make these avatar characters, and it just kind of changed the way that I even approached Sassy, Chic, Geek. And so I created these characters, I gave them personalities. And when I first created them, they were on flashcards. So they were like these little, quirky, geeky characters that represented different personality types. And the goal was for me to use them for educational purposes, mostly for women, and talking about how we are these multi-layered people who have lots of different interests. We're different people now, and we'll be different people tomorrow. And so it was really more of a way to do sort of like self-reflection. And as I started to put it out there, I got a lot of feedback on creating educational programs for younger audiences. And I got the opportunity to work with a woman as a subcontractor. Her organization's called Change Impact, and she received funding from the state of New York to create educational programs, after school programs, and things like that. And so I ended up using the using the characters rather to create curriculum. And it has since evolved. The number of characters that I have evolved. They live in a magical universe. And the goal is really to help young people, specifically girls, but I do work with all groups, to one, show up for themselves, and then start to think about the life skills, the life readiness skills, and leadership and things that they need to live their best lives, basically.
Nice. And we need that. We need that, especially like you're encouraging people to be themselves mainly. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely feel like, I listened to a little bit of your story and sort of how you got into homeschool your kids, and how I just have sort of been on this long journey in life and in my career of who am I supposed to be, And I lived in a bunch of places because I was looking for that perfect place to live. I worked in a lot of different places. I started out in the corporate America, transitioned into the public sector, and was wildly disillusioned about how to affect change and how to impact change in a way that really is going to do something that's going to move the needle. And so I think all of those things were like, I was always trying to find where I fit in. But when I really started to think about it, I realized that one, I don't have to. And two, you know, there's no need, because, you know, society tells you that you have to do all of these things, and that you have to, you know, get a job and do this and do all of these things by a certain age. But the reality is just a lot different. And so I spent a lot of time, you know, figuring that out. And I think through Sassy, Chic, Geek, really trying to express like what my values are and how I want to, you know, contribute to the lives of other people.
Nice. I love that. I love, girl.
I know we can talk about this. We can talk about this for hours and hours.
Right? No, because it's so important. And like the words that you chose as far as the sassy and the geek goes, like those are two, you know, because people will be frowning upon, especially calling, you know, a young lady sassy. Well, she's just sassy. Like you said, at that age, it was about you basically having a voice, and they didn't really want to hear it at that time. But you're now saying, okay, that voice is okay, and your opinions matter. And not only does it matter, you deserve to be seen and heard with what you're saying. Because a lot of times I talk about, I've talked about it before, as far as a child's place. You know, you were telling children, you stay in a child's place, stay in a child's place. This is adult conversation. And it's like, well, I mean, if they have an opinion about it, then maybe it's time for them to enter into that conversation, and you actually listen to them, because you know they're ready to be heard. And we kind of shut it down. So that's that sassy. Oh no, oh, she's just too sassy for me. So I like that you're flipping it. I like the same with the geek. You know how people talk about geeks and nerds. I tell mine all the time, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd. I love learning. I love learning new things. Like I love that title. By all means, nerd me. Nerd me, geek me out. Like I'm both. So
Absolutely.
I love that you're taking those and you're switching the connotation that's associated with them.
Yeah, and I want to do it in a fun way, and I want to have conversations that meet people, especially young people, where they are. And I think that the way to do it is to not always impose your opinions and thoughts, right? It's like, well, here is a framework, you know, Sassy, Chic, Geek, and all of the educational tools that we have are frameworks, right? They're not intended to be the end all be all, but just a part of your toolkit on this journey in life. And it's really about exploration, right? It's about using your imagination. You know, the characters are all very diverse, and they have very diverse opinions and attitudes in the way that they show up in the world. And I feel like it's important that we should be celebrating our differences, right? Like I mean, I feel like every time you turn on the TV or you open up, you know, social media or whatever, there's always these things to divide us. But, you know, I think our differences is what makes us, you know, unique, right? And what can bring us together if we really wanted to.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Because we're individuals, but at the same time, we are in a collective. I talk on that a lot. Like we are all meant to be our individual self, but we still all need each other to thrive.
Absolutely.
So like you said, that division is definitely being pushed. As always, divide and conquer. But people have to see past that, because we're all more alike than we think.
Yeah. And it's so crazy that it feels like sometimes like I'm on a road all by myself, right? Like, and you probably feel the same way too in a lot of ways.
Until I talk to people like you, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not out here by myself. Like,
which I love. I love that you're building this community.
Yes,
and it's so amazing. And I think that, you know, as far as homeschooling is concerned, it's something that I've heard about, right, over the years. But as in more recent times, you know, I'm really starting to see not only the community that's built, but the impact, right, that you're having on the lives of your children and other young people, to be able to create learning experiences that, I mean, honestly, I could have only imagined as a child, right? Like I definitely think that I was, you know, I kind of went through school, and I was in public school system without, you know, just I was there, right? I had to be there, right?
Yes, yes. Let's talk on that being present, like present, but
present.
but
Yeah.
not.
Right.
Yes.
And then also being like a little bit of a type A people pleaser personality. I got good grades, and maybe excelled academically, not because I was genuinely interested in what I was learning. It was really because that's what I was told to do, right? And so then you go to college and you get out of school, for me at least, I was like, this is when I'm actually learning about life. And so to have children and other young people, be able to start to sort of, explore their curiosity in a real way sooner rather than later, I think just sets them up for a more robust and meaningful life.
Indeed. Yes. I feel like, our goal should be to create lifelong learners. We want our kids to fall in love with the idea of knowing more, learning more, creating more experiences to grow from. And that's what I feel like homeschool offers. Because I did the public school thing as far as being a student myself and being a teacher in the public school setting. And honey, like them children, they didn't want to learn nothing. By the time they reached me in 10th and 12th grade, they were shut down. Like, girl, I'm not listening to you. This stuff is boring. What do we need this for? Why are we doing this? Like, that's always, I was the same way in high school. I slept. I tell people all the time, I slept my way through high school. With me knowing I wanted to be a teacher when I grew up, I still was like, oh, I'm going to sleep.
Yeah. Right. Because what's the benefit or the motivation for learning when it's like, here is the history, learn it, memorize it, no like real discussion around it, no like, let's really have a deep dive into these conversations. And I feel like, even now today, where do I get a lot of my information? I'm like YouTube University, right? Because I want to know, and I will go down the rabbit hole. I remember a couple months ago, I was looking up, why is it that, so in Maryland, like some of the stop signs, having lived here for 6 years, like traffic really is like a pain point for me, but like the stop signs are so like long, like you have to wait, the stoplights rather, you have to wait for a long time. So I'm like, how do they know like when all of this traffic is coming, like to make the stoplights go quicker? And so of course I went to YouTube to look, because I didn't know. And apparently there's like some type of magnetic devices in the ground that like controls like, when the light switches go on and off. Anyway.
Yes. No,
random aside.
But that's the thing though, we're in that time of, girl, like you don't have to question things. Like you can go and look it up. You can go do the research and learn about it. It doesn't have to be like I wonder, like, like just a thought that could never be answered type deal. It's the actual, oh shucks, let me look this up. Like I want to know. Like I go down so many rabbit holes that don't make no sense. That's why I be like, I don't even like watching movies for real, Charise, because I want to know who the actor is, what else they played in, who directed this, who produced. Like, I have so many questions, and it's just like, I don't miss half the movie looking up stuff. But that's where we're at with things. Like, it's the beauty of being able to look up whatever it is that you're questioning, and encouraging your kids to do the same, like encouraging others to say, oh, you got a question? Like, even if you can't look it up right now, write it down or put it in your notes or whatever the case, you could find the answer. Like you said, YouTube University, honey, that's how you think you could build a car. Okay. Could build a
Seriously.
car.
It helped me figure out how to braid my hair, because I was like, I am not spending all this money.
When I had my second child, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to learn this cornrow thing, because I can't get to work on time if I got to do two little ladies' hair. So right on YouTube, show was, come on, practicing on my first, like, yes. And now people be like, oh girl, I did, but don't ask me to do yours or anything like that.
It was a labor of love. I get
survival.
Exactly.
But yes, YouTube is definitely a plethora of resources. Just there's no more wonder, and I feel like there's no more questioning or just like leaving things out to the unknown. I used to tell my students all the time they was the smartest, dumbest generation. This is my 12th graders. I could talk to them like that. But I used to tell them that they was the smartest, dumbest generation because they had just a wealth of knowledge, like everything, no questions asked. Like, what cheating? I would have been cheating on everything if I was like if I was growing up a straight A student. Know all the answers. But it's like they'd rather just, not know. Like, okay, whatever. Like, what you want? Because I'm about to do this bare minimum and going about my way. They were not putting forth no big effort or just like taking the time to Google one of these questions on this worksheet and you're gonna see the whole worksheet pop up. Like that's the type of time I was on. But they weren't there. So.
Yeah, and it's like all of these tools are at our disposal, and it's really up to us to figure out how to use them or incorporate them into our lives. And yeah, like I totally agree.
And I feel like you're on a forward way of thinking because you're creating avatars to present messages and stories. And that's really cool in itself.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's not something that I ever thought that I would do, but once I did, it just sort of opened the world up to me in a way. Like the more characters that I created, the more therapeutic it felt, like the more I was like, yes, like I know this person. I don't particularly like them, but they have some things about them that, make them who they are. And I just feel like it's so important to really to celebrate the diversity of who we are, right? Like we have so many layers of our personality. We've evolved, right? Like who we were, 10 years ago, and even with children, it's like, they're constantly evolving and learning. And so, for me, like I want to do good things in the world. It took me a long time to figure out what that even looked like. And I just feel like through these characters, I'm able to, have what I like to call popping conversations. And we really could talk about anything, right? Because we are human beings that have so many aspects of our lives and our personalities. We may like certain types of food, or we may like to work a certain type of way, or we like certain types of music. Like there's just so many things about us that I sometimes feel like schools and even work environments, like they try to, they make you say, leave all of that at the door and come in and be a high performer or excel academically. But it's like, but all of these things kind of contribute to whether I can or can't do those things, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, just my
no,
random thought process.
it is what it is. Like, I like how you keep speaking on us being layered, like multi-layered. We're not just all one thing. And I feel like right now it's like the time of labels. Like they got a label for everything. Like, oh, I'm like a vegan, or oh, I'm a neurodivergent learner, or oh, I'm, it's like all these labels, and then it's like you have to uphold those expectations of those labels. Like, oh, I thought you said you were this, or I thought you said you were this. And it's like, well, that's just a part of me. Like that's just something, and that's why I don't even like to own those labels. Like I don't call me nothing.
Yeah.
I am me.
Right.
I am me. But even thinking about the notion of being a mom, people get you and they encompass you in that label, and then they don't think that you should like this, or that you have your down days where you don't want to be a mom. That is possible. Like, but people, I don't know, it's just like they try to hold you in one place, but like you keep saying, like we're multi-layered. There's so much to us as being a human that we've collected along our journey. And it's multifaceted. Like we're not just one thing.
Absolutely.
We're a lot of things.
Absolutely. And we all want to do something, many of us are searching for meaning too, right?
Yes.
And I
that
think
purpose.
Seriously. And, there are definitely people that are like, oh, you shouldn't pursue your passion and you shouldn't do this, or, all of those types of things. And, sometimes it might be true. I mean, maybe our passions are misguided, but I do think that there is something to living as authentically, as close to who you are as possible.
Yes.
And I think when you're young, um, it's even harder, right, to navigate all of that because everybody's telling us what to do when we're kids,
Yes.
right? It's like, do this, don't do that. You gotta, finish your homework by this time. You have to, like there's just so many things that I think that we're told to do without us even thinking about it. And I just want
Or
more
being
of
allowed
us.
to question it.
Exactly. Exactly. I just want more of us to question.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want
Yes,
us to
ma'am.
question starting at an younger age.
Yes, no, I love that because we spend a lot of time as adults shedding those things that have been placed on us. Like you said, the layers. Like some of those layers we don't want. Like some of those layers were forced on us, and we don't even know why. Like it's something that we even do or believe in or think about. And it has to be shed at some point in time. And sometimes that time is like later than as opposed to sooner. So it is important to encourage at a young age those questions, that critical thinking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to help to remove, so that, how we're talking about, all these years later, I'm feeling like I've had to shed a lot of things, right? And so I really just want young people, especially young girls, to not start out their lives, their adult lives with all of this baggage, right? Because I know for me, I was first generation to go to college. I was navigating all of this life stuff on my own. Now my parents are very supportive, but there were limitations in what they were able to do, right? And I don't fault them for that. I don't blame them for that. It's just, that's just the way that it was. And so for me, I learned through the school of hard knocks. I mean, whew, like the things that I've, done, like again, I was a lot of bit of a job hopper, because I'm like, oh, well, I don't feel like this is a good fit. Something else is out there for me. Like I was always searching for that thing, not realizing that that thing was inside of me. And I was always searching for this perfect place to live, right? Because I'm like, if I just find this place that I'm going to find my community, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to have my house with the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids and all of that stuff. But I realized that that was all in me, which is kind of where like Sasstopia and my characters kind of live. That's kind of where it came from, because it's like, you can go all of these places, but really where you need to go is within. You need to find that happiness within, because if you do, then it doesn't really matter where you are.
Right. Yes. And speak on that happy, because a lot of times we're asking, young people what they want to do or what they're doing per se, like as far as school goes and things like that. But, or even older people, it doesn't have to just be young people, but we don't ever really ask the question, well, are you happy?
Mm-hmm.
Are you happy? Like as opposed to, oh, what you doing? Oh, where you working at? Things like that. It's just like starting with that question. Are you happy?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
I feel like that's very important, because I don't feel like we're sent to just suffer or survive or not be happy.
Absolutely. And happiness is relative. I recently did a workshop called Creating Safe Spaces for Black Women and Girls. And I was looking for different definitions for safe spaces. And one of the definitions that I found was about it was the way that they talked about safe spaces was safer, and they were trying to acknowledge that everyone is going to come at what makes a safe space for them for different reasons. They're going to be motivated differently, and then they're going to be at different points in their lives. And this kind of goes back to your point about asking about happiness, right? happiness is going to be relative, right? Like what you might define as happiness might be different from me or the next person. And
Yes.
so even in asking those questions, I feel like we need to dig a little bit deeper in saying, okay, well, what exactly is happiness to you? You know, like what are
Yes.
those things? Because for some people, a lot of people, happiness isn't like in all of the superficial stuff. It's not in all of the millions of dollars, although that would be nice because
Right.
it makes a difference. But ultimately, those aren't the things that make us happy, right?
Yes. Yes. No, that's the same thing with success.
Mhm.
That's very what perspective based.
Mhm.
Because everyone's definition of success is different.
Oh
And
yeah.
it should be okay. Like that should be a thing. That should be a standard of success. But you talked about the white picket fence and the
Yeah.
2.5 that's associated with the American dream. But it's like, with knowing that we're all individuals, we gotta understand that we all dream different too, right?
Mhm.
Right. So
Speak
that
on it.
yeah, so that dream looks different for all of us. And it
Yeah.
shouldn't be a one-sided, like, you're not doing this, then how is that successful? Like, how, like you say, oh, you don't have the millions, how are you happy? No,
Right.
it looks different for everyone.
Absolutely. And, I think for me, coming into this sort of adulthood, trying to figure all of that out, you're looking at all of these, I'm looking at all of these external things, right? Like this is what society says. Society says that we have to, go to college and get an education and then go into the workforce and do your time, get your retirement, and be done. And I just think that that is a narrative that just doesn't work for everyone. College is
Mm-mm.
not for everyone, right? Like if someone said to me back in the late 90s, you don't have to go to college. Explore all of your options. I might have made
Yes.
some different decisions. You know what
Right?
I'm
That
saying?
speak on it. Speak on it.
Not even
Yes.
might, I definitely would have made different decisions, right? Like getting into debt to, get an education. Like, come on. And so again, like I hate to keep bringing it back to like young people, but I really just don't want young people to make all the
Yeah, I
mistakes
mean,
that I
there.
made.
Yes, that's what it's about. It's about changing the future as far as giving them the tools and resources that we didn't necessarily, or the conversations. It only have to be
Mhm.
tools and just the basic words of understanding. Like it can be different. It does not
Right.
have to fit this mode. Like, we raised by baby boomers, like you spoke on being a
Mhm.
first generation college student in your family. That mattered for them. Like the baby boomers were pushing college because
Mhm.
they felt like that was going to guarantee success, especially for our Black and brown kids.
Mhm.
However, they didn't know that it wasn't, and that it was going to lead us into a world of debt that we would be spending the rest of our life trying to pay off, and with no guaranteed job afterwards. Like there's plenty of people, and you know this as well as any other college graduate knows, there are plenty of people holding degrees that they're doing nothing with. Not a
Absolutely
thing.
nothing.
Not a thing. And I think on the level of, especially with me having a nonprofit, just if that conversation was had with me early on, like, oh,
Yeah.
you can create organizations that help people or provide services for people and still be able to live through that. Oh, I
Mhm.
would like to do that. Like,
Mhm.
but we weren't having those conversations. We weren't talking about entrepreneurship when I was able to see it through my mom because she was an entrepreneur. But
Mhm.
as far as school goes, and it was college or work, college or
Yeah.
work, college or work. You either going to
Mhm.
college, you're going to work for somebody.
Mhm.
And it was like, oh, I don't really want to go work for nobody right now. Let me just go to college.
What are you
Let me go to
telling?
college, even though I had to work while in college too. So,
Yeah.
math wasn't math in no way around. But it's just that these conversations are important. Your organization, what you're doing, your blog, the information you're providing is important for our younger generation to just know and be able to see different,
Mhm.
different than
Absolutely.
what has been programmed or what is systemically set up for not our success, or not not for us to thrive. Okay.
No.
I don't, that whole notion of working till you're 65, I just takes my breath away.
Mhm.
Well, what am I supposed to do after 65?
Oh, then that's when you're supposed to live your life. You know that?
Wait a minute. What?
That's if you can,
I gotta
your
wait that
body's
long?
still functioning.
Girl, speak on. I was talking to what I think Monty like 23. We were talking about that over last weekend, just talking about that whole notion of like people just working all their good years away. And then being asked to enjoy it afterwards. That's why you got the 65-year-old, 70-year-old men buying Corvettes or hot boy cars, because they couldn't do it when they were working, or they couldn't do it during that time because they wasn't even going to be able to enjoy it because they're working 50, 60 hours a week. And I don't like that. I don't like that plan.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely, my relationship with work was, it was volatile up until recently, honestly, because I think that again, like, being in the workforce, you're told to just get a job, right? And then you get these jobs, and most of the jobs that I had, I never had the desire to be promoted. And I think people looked at that as being like, oh, you're not ambitious, or you're not, all of those things. And it was never that. I was like, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Like, I'm legitimately not interested. And so what happened for me is that I just kept going from job to job because I was like, well, I'm not interested. So that's the reason that I don't want to stay here, is that I'm just not interested in the work. But it was so much deeper than that. It was just like fundamentally, I wasn't wired for those types of environments. And once I came to grips with that, like, it was almost like a sigh of relief, because you go in these work environments and, I went from working in the private sector to the public sector, which as a teacher, and I worked in government, and it was just like, I actually feel like I became more cynical when I started to work for the good of other people to have an impact than when I was working in the private sector. I was just so like clueless, and I was like, wow, I want to change the world. I want to do all of these things. And my first nonprofit job was at an education nonprofit, and it was in New York City. And I worked with public schools. Our organization, it's called Pencil. They connected the private sector, so businesses, to public schools to, provide a lot of different resources, whether that was, educational experiences, internships for young people, or just helping schools to sort of build their capacity. And I got to tell you, learning about the New York City public school system was enlightening.
Right.
Oh, whoa, it is a hard place for a kid. And and that's if you're not getting into the elite public schools, right? Because they're the elite public schools, and then there are the rest of them. And yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And my hat's off to you for even being an educator at one point in your life, because that is a very, very, very difficult job.
I was like you just said, like I thought I was making a difference. I thought I was gonna go in there and change everything, like my classroom and da 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 and all this stuff. And it's like once you just spoke on your public school system, any public school system, learning about the actual workings of and how it's set up. It's disheartening. And it's like, oh shucks, like we can't, they're not going to be their best. Like there's no way for them to be their best through this, not individual, like on a standard level, without involving the home. The home is so important. No matter if your child is in public, private, charter, I don't care what kind of school setting, your home is still the most important factor in their learning, in their educational journey. And parents have to understand their involvement of like their guidance that is needed for their children. It's a necessity for our children to succeed, for their parents to be the leading leading guidance in that educational journey.
Yeah.
So yeah, seeing the workings of the system, it wasn't I tell people before I had kids, Charise, I was telling people I'm homeschooling my kids. This is wild. This is the trenches. I'm not sending my children to the trenches. This is wild. It's ghetto. No, sending my children here. Yes, I was really passionate about that, and that was in the early 2000s when I started substitute teaching, and I just no, my children can't come here. This is too much.
Yeah.
This is too much. And that was on all aspects. It wasn't to do with the kids. It was just to learning how the system works and is designed. And then, of course, once I taught 12th grade, I was like, oh, yeah, no, they definitely can't go through this. Like, this is wild. And that's, I feel like 12th grade was my eye opener too, just how, I don't even know like how to describe it, but just the disparity that's in a system that's so normalized for us. Just seeing how our children are just after 13 years, what they've encompassed during that time, it don't equate. It doesn't add up. 13 years does not add up to what those 12th graders were coming to me with. And that's what was like, oh yeah, nah. This is wild. I was like, okay, maybe my voice is supposed to be for something else. Like I'm here. I've been in here. I see. Yeah, no, this ain't it, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, it is a good time, I think, to really be in a position to homeschool. There's a lot of resources available and a lot of organizations like yours, I think, that are really helping parents who are struggling with how are you going to navigate this? I don't have children, and part of it is because I'm like, I can't afford them. Like to really I can't afford them. I'm like, when I can, afford a full-time living nanny that's gonna be with them all the time, then I'll have kids. And that'll probably be when I'm like 70 and ready to retire, right? But like I have friends and family members who are raising young kids, and the things that they talk about, as far as where are they going to go to school, and what like other types of enrichment programs am I going to keep them in to keep them busy and engaged, and I just say to myself, like, wow, seems so much more stressful than what my parents, I mean, I'm sure they had their struggles too, but it feels so much more stressful, and the pressure, seems to be really on to set your kids up for success, right? Like, what school district am I going to live in? And, then there's all the issues associated with that, right? Like, can I afford to live in the school district that I want to put my kids in? And, it's just, but all that said, I feel like all of these new tools and these new approaches are what's needed. Okay, so maybe the public education system isn't going to be transformed right away. I see so many teachers leaving the profession, right? I have friends that were teachers, and they're like, I can't do this anymore. It's just too much.
Yeah. And these are passionate teachers too.
Right.
Like, yes. Yeah.
Right. So like, obviously we have to have larger conversations about that, but it just feels like there's this movement and this activity that's kind of happening outside of the public school realm, right? And I think that it's so important that we are all paying attention, right? Homeschooling, what types of technologies are we using and integrating in our kids' lives? How are we helping them to be full human beings? Talking to, and this probably firsthand, but talking to some of these like graduating high school students and college students, and the pressure that they have on themselves, the things that they're all involved in, just so that they can either get accepted to a good college or get a good job. I remember a couple weeks ago talking to this young woman. She's a junior in college, and she's like, I don't know. Am I going to get a good job after I graduate, or should I go back to grad school? And I wanted to be like, don't go back to grad school again. Like you just took out a bunch of student loans already. Like pause
Yeah,
for a minute.
unless you want to defer those loans, like continue to defer them.
Right, until you retire.
But yeah, no, these kids are. I didn't like the fact, or I still don't like the fact that college is pushed in the manner that it is with a lot of these kids thinking really wholeheartedly like, oh, if I go to college, then I'm gonna be successful, and that's not the equation. That's truly not the equation. And I used to have real conversations with my seniors, especially ones that come to me barely reading, barely writing, on a 12th grade level, and it's on at barely out of elementary school type of level. And you're telling me you want to go to college, and all college is, in my opinion, is reading and writing, literally. So it's just like, well, what you gonna do when you get there? And a lot of them don't know, but it's just something that's been told to them over and over and over that, oh, you can go to college. And like I said, if you're being approached with, oh, you going to go to college or you can go to the world of work, which one you gonna choose? Well, on TV, college look real fun, real fun. Okay, because it's like, oh, we partying all the time. They got this, the frats, the fraternities. They got all this stuff. Not thinking about the academics that really doesn't even set you up for the whatever career it is that you are trying to set in. Because experience is still going to out trump any kind of book that you read, anyways. So it's just like, how are we setting these kids up with preaching to them that, oh, you got to go to college to be successful, but they barely made it through school.
Exactly. Right. Or not even like acknowledging how they learn, right? Because again, everyone learns differently. And I hear a lot, and I've been reading a lot of articles probably the last couple of months about Gen Z, and oh, Gen Z is the laziest generation. But I really feel like they could say that about every single generation. I'm sure boomers said that about X, and X says that about millennials, and so on and so forth. And I feel like while I do think that there are lots of young people that just could care less about what happens to them, if they even make it to high school, I don't think that represents all. And again, for every generation, I think you have that group of people. But for a lot of them, I feel like they're just not given really good guidance other than go to college, and I think it's not fair to then expect them to then go to college, they get out of school, and they're like, okay, now what? Well, because we didn't teach them the now what part. We didn't help prepare them for that, Yeah.
Yes. No, I totally agree. I feel like lazy is subjective, another subjective word. Because I don't agree that we were sent here to just work. I don't feel like, and I feel like Gen Z is one that have figured out, well, if I'm gonna work, then I'm at least gonna enjoy whatever it is that I'm working, or where I'm working, or feel valued at wherever I'm working. Because, a lot of the conversations, like I told you, I was just talking to a 23-year-old this past weekend, and just like, they are associated with being lazy, but it's like, are they lazy, or are they like, okay, well, if I'm gonna do some of my time, it's gonna be something that I want to do with it. Should we really be looking down on, or should we kind of be like, oh, hats off to you, because you're not letting somebody waste your time, nor are you letting a company devalue your time. And that's really big to me, because these kids will quit. Like they'll quit a job quick, and I love that for them. Like, yes, because there's so many more other things that you could be doing, or however you're going to be earning, especially if you want to be respected while building up someone else's company. Like, these are corporations that are worth billions of dollars that are paying the bare minimum, not, and got the nerve to be treating you as if you're not an asset, or you're not the necessity, you're not the one running the company. And nah, you gotta show them better than you can tell them. And that's what I feel like Gen Z has awakened to. So I see them totally different than the whole little lazy thing. Like, but I do see that that's what they're associated with all the time. But it's like, nah, I feel like they just awaken to their value. Especially with time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And most of my public sector career was in sort of like economic development and small business development, I feel like that gave me like the flips. Well, it gave me a lot of inspiration because entrepreneurship is just, I mean, to get to be around entrepreneurs and work with them and to see them, you're like, hey, I want to do that. That looks so exciting. But I think the other side of it too is, when we talk about economic development and, building these communities, you can't build good communities without building up the people that are in these communities. And then, if you're not building a good community, then the good people are going to go to other places.
The other community, yeah.
So I just think that I feel personally a sense of urgency in helping young people navigate the world. Like I really do. And I struggled for a long time. I'm like, should I do it full time? Should I do it this? But the urgency for me is there because I'm like, having conversations with them, it's just like, man, if you only knew a few years, just a few years ago, sometimes I feel like if I could even go back 5 years of what I know now, oh my goodness.
Right. Yeah, no, a difference that it would make. That's why it's important for us to share our experiences to these young people. Like, and not on well, don't do this, don't do that. It's just like on a learn from me. Let me tell you my story. This is what this is what happened with me. Like, talk about the things you would have done different and just leave it there. No, like, oh, well, you should do this or you should do that. Nobody's going for that. Like I tell people, I don't like people telling me what I need to be doing. I'm 40. Like you can imagine what a teenager hears when you talking about something you should, and you haven't even asked me what I like yet. Like people telling you all the, like, go back to the definition of happy. You haven't even asked me about my happy place, but you telling me what I need to do. Get out of here. Like I'm not listening to you. But that's where we are. What all services does Sassy, Chic, Geek provide?
Okay, so it's a lot. So on the one hand, I provide educational programs, and I have 4. One is for middle school girls. It's called Journey to Sasstopia. And it's really about how do we show up for ourselves? How do we build that confidence and really start to dip our toe in the world of leadership? Then I have Social Innovate Her, which is sort of like it takes it to the next level for high school students. And it's really about how do we first show up for ourselves and then go out to the world to do dope and amazing things, but with a framework of how do you actually go about social change? Because I thought a lot about this over the years working in many of these places. Pop Slave Vibe is really about how it's also for sort of like late middle school to high school age girls focused on celebrating being a Black girl and helping to boost our confidence around that. So like all of the characters that I have are infused in all of these different programs. And then lastly is called Work It. And it's really about life and work readiness. So like, what are the practical things that you need to get ready for life after high school, work, and, all of those things. So there's like a financial literacy component. There's like an etiquette light, because I don't like to think that I'm like this Miss Manners person, but like, what you do need certain types of social skills.
Yeah.
And so those are the educational programs. And then I offer services. I create custom curriculum. And if people are interested in creating more of an impact with their programs, I work with them to do that. And so a lot of the times it's, can we use your diverse characters or things like that to make our programs more inclusive, and to reach, the audiences that we're looking to reach. And so, yeah, I do all of those things.
And they're all so much needed. So very much. Especially, I love that you have a high focus on middle school girls because, girl, The middle
that's a
school.
rough time.
What tell you again, parents, 7th grade, like you got children in public school, please know that transition from 6th to 7th is a wild one. And if you're not involved, you haven't built that relationship, it's going to be really rough for y'all. I've watched it many times over. many
only
times
imagine.
over.
You probably have so many stories.
What, girl? Too many. Too many. But that's what I love what you're doing. Is very much needed, because our lovelies need to know the importance of knowing ourselves first. Especially our young ladies, because they're so in a rush to be in love, so in a rush. And I'm speaking on my experience with my 10-year-old, and I talk to her all the time, like, girl, learn yourself first before you get to talking to me about a boyfriend and when can you date and when can, like, learn you first. And so now I'll hear her say, oh, I don't even know myself yet. Like,
yeah, I love that.
Oh yes, real heavy on it, because like we have some great conversations, and that's what parents got to know. You got to have the conversations, because please believe, if they ain't talking to you, they're talking to somebody.
Exactly.
All right, so let them be talking to you, or Miss Charise. Look, or Miss Charise.
They can talk to me, because I love, as you can see, probably I love to talk.
Yes, ma'am. Me too. Me too. No worries. I definitely prefer to talk to kids more than adults at before, but I've since, learned to listen and to understand my voice is also needed in the adult world. So I've transitioned, but I definitely prefer the kids.
Totally get it.
I definitely prefer the kids, but I appreciate the work you're doing. It's very much needed. Very, very much needed. It's empowering. I can't say that word.
It's okay. I struggle with it sometimes. I'm like, I don't even know if I like using that word sometimes.
I know, right? I don't. Yeah. Powerful.
I actually purposely
I prefer powerful.
Okay. Me too. Right, because our voice is our power.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. It definitely is. So I'm glad you found your passion and you're walking in it. Isn't that, look, don't it get lighter when you're walking in your passion though?
It does. It feels really good, and I'm so appreciative of you and the space that you're creating through Homeschool Your Kids. And I'm so excited to be more immersed in the world that you're in and just be a support in any way that I can. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I definitely do. Talking to individuals like you that are putting in the work, creating a resource, creating the tools for families, that's always like just for my reminder of like, we got this. Like, television paints a grim picture, and that's why I watch it. So when you tap out of that and you actually having the conversations with the people in the field, off the porch, doing the work, it's like, it's different feel. It's like, oh, we got this. We got this. The changes are being made. The work is being done. And so I love being able to provide this platform for parents to reach individuals like you that are here to help.
Yeah, you are doing the thing. You are doing it.
Yes, this is a community effort. All come together for the greater good. And I appreciate everyone who takes the time to speak with me and share their resources for families. Yes, I like to remind the listeners, this is not a journey to do alone. Yes, we are individuals, but we are a collective. We all vibe off each other. We're all a piece to the puzzle. And each role is important. The puzzle is not complete without a puzzle piece. So it doesn't matter how big your puzzle piece is, whatever the case may be, your puzzle piece is needed, because if not, it's not complete, right? So understand your importance, understand that you have a purpose, understand that it gets easier when you ask and look for help and support and community. And if it's not available to you, build it.
Yes, I love it.
Yes. So thank
so
you,
much
Charise.
wisdom. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Jay.
Oh, of course. Where do we find you? And these links will be available in the description too, but I like for people to hear it too. Where do we find you?
So you can find me at sassychicgeek.com. It's chic, CHIC. And I am also mostly on Instagram at Sassy Chic Geek.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I look forward to meeting you in person soon. I'm very
Yes.
excited. Thank you for being a part of the expo. Very
Yes,
much. I
absolutely.
don't look won't speak on it because these episodes don't be aligned with where
Yeah.
as far as the
Yeah. No, I totally
publishing
get
and all
it.
that good stuff. But
Yeah.
know that she is a trusted resource, and I just love learning about her journey as to why she's doing what she's doing. Oh, there's a beautiful butterfly. Oh my gosh, that's so pretty. Look at me and my ADHD. Yes,
It's okay.
see this butterfly. Talk to me. Yes, I see you.
Oh.
Yes, I'm on my parents' patio,
Oh,
and
really?
yes, and my mom has so many different flowers and things around. So this is a yard to hang out in. If you want to
Oh,
look,
I'm
if you were a
jealous.
creature, this is a yard to chill in. So. But thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't say it
Thank
enough.
you. And
But
I can't wait to meet you in a couple
of
weeks.
course, parents, you already know, homeschool your kids.
Yeah.